Good afternoon or evening or whatever time it may be for wherever you are, if you are tuning in. And thank you for joining me for another open mic. I have an awesome guest tonight for a earlier edition of open mic. Someone I've been wanting to get on my channel for a long time. Well, long time in air quotes. I haven't even been on YouTube for more than a couple months, but I've been seeing him around the YouTubes, and I'm like, oh, I got to talk to him sometime. So we're able to make it work. So I got Extra Zero joining me today.
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Hey, good evening. I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a little bit of a hectic schedule because when we first started talking, you had mentioned that you go live on Thursdays, and then I have my show on Thursdays. So, we finally settled on a Tuesday, and then I had some stuff come up, so we had to move it back. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm really excited to talk about games with you, man, because I love talking video games. And in
Yes.
the shows that I'm on, I rarely get to do it. So this is going to be fun.
Yes. That was basically the whole reason why I wanted to start my channel, because people talk about like video game news and stuff. It's like all I want to do is talk about the games themselves. So
Yes.
that's why I started my channel. My open mic is much more open-ended and it's much more flexible. I typically do it on Thursday night, but I can move it around as needed. But Party Chat's the one that's kind of set in stone because I really want to do it on Saturday, and that's really the only time that it works for my co-host. I was hoping you were going to be able to be one of my co-hosts as well, but you got your Legion of Memers streams at basically the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot of competitive schedules out there, and I know and for those that don't know me, I'm the producer for the Legion of Memers. So one of the biggest challenges I have is when I'm booking guests, we have to, our show's kind of static. We do primarily the Saturday show. We do have weeknight shows that we'll do if we have like a guest we really want to get, and they're just unavailable on Saturdays. We open it up, like Cash Kester is one of them. The Smoking Man meme.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that meme.
Yeah,
I didn't know there was a name to it though.
He works in the restaurant business, and he only can do like Monday nights. So I'm working on making that happen at some point. But I know all about getting folks with their schedules. It can be tough, so I completely understand.
So you said you were the producer. I was under the impression that you were like the head of the Legion.
No, that is Superman if he was not afraid of green rocks.
Right after you said that you were producer, I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you were head, but now that you mentioned it, it's probably Superman if he wasn't scared of green rocks.
No Green Rocks is the founder, creator, and host of the Legion of Memers meme streams. I am fortunate to be the producer and the co-host of the Saturday meme streams. So that's my role.
And also an excellent Lord of Memes. You've helped me out with a couple of them because all I know is some basic paint, but cut and paste and transparent selection. That's about my extent. So you've helped me out with a couple memes.
No, I'm happy to too. I mean, one of our tenets in the Legion is we're not here to gatekeep people from creating content. We want people to create content. We want people to have fun. We want people to contribute. It makes all of this so much more fun. And on top of that, it lends to escapism, which, we're here to talk about games. And one of the things I love the most about gaming is it's an escape. The world is not sunshine and rainbows all the time. And memes are a good way, just as gaming is a good way to kind of laugh and have fun. And we want all the people who have ideas, we want them to bring their ideas to life and make memes and have fun and be part of that world. So, I'm always happy to help anybody that wants to learn or sharpen their skills or, learn how to do it on a higher level. That's one of the things that we love to do and encourage in the community.
That's awesome. So, because I'm not terribly familiar with who makes up the Legion of Memers, but I believe is Horny Alpha also part of the group?
He is, yeah. Horny Alpha is one of our memers. He's also on the meme stream. We've got Devil Made Me Do. Devil Made Me Do it.
Realize he was in there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeremy Wormy is another. CJP Forgot One Music. Awesome dude. Check out his if you love gaming music. We were playing some DJ Axis before we got in. I see him in the chat.
DJ Axis. Hello, DJ Axis. Thank you for joining us for another open mic. I was trying to have your music playing in the background, but it would have to take up its own window because I'm not doing this through OBS. But once I get that figured out, I'll probably start doing that. But yes, DJ Axis has good video game music.
Yeah, CJP does a lot of the sound font stuff. He does a lot of GoldenEye sound font stuff. Definitely check his channel out. We've got art by Kenzo, Oculus. We've got True Pop Culture 7. good God, I'm probably forgetting some folks, but follow the Legion of Memers on Twitter, follow us on YouTube and Rumble. Just the Legion of Memers. Everybody is everybody that's connected is there. And then we have a lot of people that aren't hosts on the meme stream, but are part of the Legion, like Steven Voiceover. We've got Serious Man, Skirmitar.
Skirmitar. Okay, I see him in Open Airlock Policy streams a lot.
Yeah. So Skirmitar is a good dude. We bat ideas off one another all the time as well, and we have a lot of fun with the full Aussie content. I'll say that much.
I know of the guys on the full Aussie, but I haven't actually watched it myself. But what's up, buddy? Paul Hadouken hopping in here saying howdy. So the reason why I mentioned Horny Alf is because I've been in a couple of his streams, just one as of yesterday, because he's been streaming one of my favorite games. So I've kind of been, he played it like a long time ago and then didn't play it for years. And I've gotten hooked on it. I'm playing through it for the third time this year right now. And it's Subnautica.
Yeah, I saw he was doing that, and he's also doing Halo as well. I'm like,
I haven't watched that, but yeah, I did see that. So I'm very familiar with Subnautica, so I've been kind of like giving him tips while I'm in the stream, like, oh, you should go do this, you should go do this. So, and then another guy I see around a lot, and I don't know if he's actually part of Legion Memers, but Jonathan Davis.
Jonathan Davis, he's an aspiring memer. He's not an official part of the Legion yet.
He's been doing a lot of memes in Melee
he does
Discord.
Awesome work, and a great dude. Really good dude.
Good dude. I don't know if he does any YouTube appearances or anything, but I'm hoping to get him on here sometime to talk about video games too.
He was on I believe he was on a show with, was it James? I think he came on with James.
Okay.
For Melee Games. I think they did a stream together. They did. Yeah, where he talked through it. And I can't remember what the stream was, but I sat there. I'm always doing like 5 things at once. Unless I'm on a stream, I'm very focused.
You know what? I bet you it was probably the Gollum stream because he
it was the Gollum stream because he bought Gollum for James, so he was on there.
I wasn't able to make that stream, but I have it in my playlist and I am going to watch it at some point.
Yep. So and DJ chimed in and said he was on 2 of James.
Oh, he was on 2 of James' stream. Yeah, I know he bought Gollum for James, so I figured that was probably one of them. So, well, after getting through all the pleasantries, let's talk games.
Hell yeah, I'm ready.
So, did you have any gaming related topics you wanted to bring up? Anything you wanted to talk about?
Oh man, there's a ton of stuff. I mean, we could talk about the current state of physical media. I mean, we've got a bunch of games coming out within the next couple of weeks. Obviously, this week we've had, before the show started, I was talking about, Sonic Superstars came out today. I have not picked that up. I've watched reviews. It's a wait for sale for me. But Friday, I'm getting Mario Wonder, and I'm also getting Spider-Man 2, and I'm hyped for both of them. And I think those games are going to be great together because it's like, well, if you have enough of the open world, just run through a Mario level, Then let's see what else is coming out next week. We've got the Metal Gear Collection, which is another, I want it, but I'm going to wait for a sale.
So yeah, I know one of my buddies on Twitter, he's been posting every single day for like the last 3 months, how many days until the Metal Gear Collection comes out. It's like, now explain to me why you would want to play it on the most inferior system available when it's been available on every other system for years.
The other thing too, and I don't know if it matters to you, is I have the collection on PS3, and pressure sensitive buttons really matter in Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. Fun fact, I had the OG Xbox before I had a PlayStation 2. Of that generation, I bought GameCube first. Technically, if you want to count Dreamcast, I had Dreamcast first, then GameCube.
Of course. Why wouldn't you count it?
You should. A lot of people forget about it. A lot of people kind of want to put it in with that previous generation, like with
it was kind of like this half step.
Yeah, like the Wii U.
Too early for one, but too late for another. Yeah, Wii U.
Because the Dreamcast came out in 98 in Japan, 99 in the US, and then PS1 or PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. And I was all in on GameCube. I was like sold when they showed that Space World Zelda demo. I was like, I need that in my life. This is the console I'm going with.
We talked about that when James and Kay were on for open mic. It's like it's still sad we never got that game.
Yeah.
But Twilight Princess was a good because Twilight Princess is this close to Ocarina of Time for me.
It is
Zelda games.
So for me, it's funny because I hated when I first saw the footage of Wind Waker. I was like, "What did they do? Look how they massacred my boy!" And then
Yep.
it's top 3 Zelda games for me.
Okay. So you,
You
yeah,
know,
you and Kay are on the same page then,
yeah,
because I we were talking trash before they came on that time. It was funny. I don't hate the game, but it's not very high in my list of Zelda games.
it's not for everybody. I completely get that. It's funny though because if you love Ocarina of Time and they had the best pre-order bonus of any
That's why
pre-order
I
bonus,
pre-ordered it, is
yeah.
for Master
Yeah,
Quest.
they gave you that, and the game, as far as the story goes, it's very connected to Ocarina of Time. Um, eh, yeah, I just I fell in love with the characters, and I just the art. It was funny because I was repulsed by the art at first, and then I ended up I was like, I love this art. I love this like Nordic cartoon style, and the game's art has really stood the test of time. I've loved the combat. It's one of those games where I normally don't like. I don't like stealth in most things, and I was like, I'm putting stealth in Zelda, and I love those little stealth sections. They're so much fun.
I love stealth games, so I never had a problem
You
with
know,
that. But
I think when it comes to stealth, it's like just my 2 games are Splinter Cell and Metal Gear, and
yes,
those are the two. And I mean a little bit of Tenchu. Tenchu was
I've always heard that that was a
yeah.
good series, but I never played it.
Oh yeah, the that's a game that really needs a remaster. Like just bring it back. Like don't remake it, just remaster it. Like stick it to the
Yeah,
rooftops and yeah,
just put a new coat of paint on it. Don't
yeah.
touch anything else, which is exactly what they should do
Mhm.
with KOTOR, but they're remaking it,
I
and
know.
for
Well, that
modern
that got scrapped.
audiences.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
got scrapped, and
thank
thank God
goodness.
because, like you said, all it needs is a fresh coat of paint,
Yeah,
and
I got
and
in
that
a little bit of a Twitter war with somebody who is whining about it getting canned. When it was basically official a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, "This is a good thing." And he's like, "Oh, you're gonna go home and cry about it?" I'm like, "You're the one crying. I'm the one
right,
happy about
exactly.
this."
You know,
He kept coming back at me. I'm like, "Dude, you're a soy boy. I'm ignoring you."
yeah, yeah. That's the thing with Twitter is I've learned better. I got into it with the Starfield people. I got into it with the Mortal Kombat 1 people, and I've played the hell out of Mortal Kombat 1, and I had this guy calling me a liar for saying the game had issues, and I'm like, dude, and then he's
Every
calling.
game has issues.
Yes, every game has issues, and he's calling me a kid. I'm like, I am nearly 40 years old with a
So I
wife and
could probably be your dad.
and a house. I'm not a kid. Also, I aired out all of my frustration. Then at first, it's like provide examples, and then he yells at me for writing him an essay, and I'm like, you wanted to know what I thought. I told you what I thought, and
These are my reasons behind it.
yeah, I just it's like those people, they are energy vampires. That's all. And it's just I've learned, to just stop engaging those people because all they're gonna do is no matter what you say, they're going to twist your words and they're going to come at you and just tell you that you're seething, you're coping, you're crying, and it's like, no, you're the one that's kind of butthurt over the fact that a video game isn't
It's
everything that you wanted it to be. But I'm sorry,
it's
if you like it so much, go play it. That's why I said to the Starfield guys. I was like, if you think the game is so great, instead of white knighting for it, why don't you go play it? It's 100 hours plus. And the guys were like, I already beat it. I'm just waiting for New Game Plus to come out. But obviously you didn't get far. I'm like, no, I didn't get far because I didn't find it. It wasn't my cup of tea. And I said as much.
yeah.
And I'm
Shoot.
not even one of the pronoun people in it. I'm not like crying about the pronouns. Like, this game is boring. That's
Yeah,
all.
I'll play it at some point. I don't know when because the backlog is so huge, but I'm sure I'll
Yeah.
enjoy it. But I could definitely understand people not
Yeah.
not being for it. But yeah, DJ Axis is saying that his go-to stealths are Splinter Cell, which I'm a massive fan of. Metal Gear Solid, which the only one I've ever played is Revengeance because it's basically been a
Really?
PlayStation franchise. I've never owned a PlayStation, and I like hack and slashes, so I was a big fan of Revengeance.
Well,
And
Metal Gear's been out on PC for a long time.
well,
Mm.
as I was mentioning in my beforehand, the PC that I've been on for the last is about 12 years old.
No,
So I
fair,
finally now
fair, but
have a PC that's capable of
yeah,
running stuff.
yeah. Metal Gear
Um,
2 did get released on Xbox a few times actually. It got released
oh,
in the on the OG Xbox. They did oh God, what was it called? It was Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance. And
Never
then
heard of that one.
yeah, it was an interesting one because it actually had a skateboarding mini game in it. Remember when Konami did that? Like they dipped their toe in like the Tony Hawk clones. They put that skate engine and you could skateboard on Big Shell with like Snake and Raiden. It was actually kind of neat. It was like one of the reasons I was like, okay, I'll check this out. And then they did the releases on the 360. And then it got delisted. Not it got delisted for a really silly reason because they had to license some of the historical footage, and so they delisted it with the stores because they just like were trying to get those rights back.
Licensing stuff is such a pain.
It is, and that's the thing. It really needs to be like film. Like I'm the last person on earth to say there should be a law for that, but it's like imagine if it's like one of the things that gets me about video games in the digital world, and one of the things that concerns me about the evaporation of physical games is, we're seeing stuff like Grand Theft Auto 4 had a whole radio station patched out because
Oh,
Rockstar
that's right.
lost the rights. There was, of course, everybody knows about Skullgirls by now. There was another
I know
game.
of the game. I don't know. Was there some sort? Oh,
Yeah,
I do remember hearing something about, but I don't remember what it was now.
Yeah, Skullgirls got patched recently for they've had content in it that they said just didn't gel with modern audiences. Like people with armbands on, but not really, the bad guys from World War II.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and people came in and there was some suggestive art in it. So they scrubbed the game, they censored it, they rated some of the sprites, and they scrubbed the game right down to the digital art book. They redid the art book, redid cutscenes for a 12-year-old game. And it's like there's some people
that old.
yeah, it was one of the it did get a physical release, but it was one of the first games to really be a big deal for digital release because it was a fighting game that came out, I think, initially digitally and then was played at Evo. And somebody keep me honest if I'm wrong on that, but I think that was the case, and it got the physical release down the road because PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era, I mean, everything was physical, and they did have the Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah,
and
arcade.
yeah, and PlayStation, I forget what they called theirs. I don't think it was PlayStation Minis, but the games that came out, they were more like, hey, we're gonna do bite-sized games digitally, and then the stuff that you would want, it's gonna be a physical release, and it the landscape changed. But my concern, and to bring it back, I think games need to be like film. Because imagine if like Universal owns the rights to Scarface, and Scarface arguably has one of the best 80s soundtracks in it, and Push It to the Limit is a huge one. Now imagine if Universal lost the rights to some of the songs. They're like, yeah, we're gonna have to replace Push It to the Limit with another song because we lost the rights to this. So all the your digital copy of Scarface, next time you watch it's gonna have new music. So
Yeah.
what's the rights that films have where you could continuously sell a film and you have like your music and your actors likenesses and all that in there set in stone, so that they
40
can't
years
alter
later.
it. Right, exactly. I mean, I think it's funny people have already forgotten about like the ET pushback when they re-released ET.
Oh, the
It's like,
guns
yeah,
to
the
flashlights or
walkie-talkies.
walkie-talkies?
Yeah, Star Wars.
I've never
Special.
seen that, but I've heard about it.
It's like it's a small thing, it's a little thing, but people saw at the time that like, hey, this could set a really bad precedent for films going forward and the re-release of films on new formats.
And I heard that after he did that, Spielberg said he made a mistake and he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. DJ put a good point there. He said, I didn't even know this happened, but DJ said, it's funny you should mention that Payday 2 had a Scarface DLC that got completely removed because the rights expired.
I didn't know that either,
yeah,
but I don't know much about Payday. Other than 3 just came out recently.
I have friends that play it, but I just, it's like this thing is I mentioned I'm almost 40, and it's hard for me to find the time to get a group of friends together. All my friends have kids. My wife and I are trying for number one, and it's just like when that kid comes around, it's like, well, where I will have time for single player stuff here and there, but it's like, we're going to play multiplayer with friends.
Yeah.
So
Um, but
yeah.
yeah, so I'm sure I would like the Metal Gear franchise if I got into it. Just
Mhm.
I'm so far behind it, I probably just never will.
Yeah.
Especially with yeah, I would want to play through basically the whole thing. And it's like I've got so many other games in my backlog.
Well, the good news is they're not the longest games. It's just the cutscenes are what
I was gonna
will
say
take it. Yeah.
I think the thing is the cutscenes can be longer
Yeah.
than the game, right? No,
Well,
not
Metal
really,
Gear
but
Solid, the first Metal Gear Solid is probably the easiest one to get through. Metal Gear Solid 2 is like where they introduced like I mean, there's like times where it's like you have a cutscene, you get control of your character back, you go down a hallway, and literally another cutscene plays. It's like, why'd you give me control back?
I've heard that there's
Yeah.
cutscenes that are so long that the controller will fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, I never had that issue, but I mean, back in the when I played Metal Gear 2, I mean, we were still on wired controllers. I have not played Metal Gear 2 on a wireless controller.
But I do
uh,
know that they because that was Kojima, right?
yeah,
He's done
Metal
some
Gear.
really crazy things with Metal Gear
Yeah, the only Metal Gear game that he didn't do was that weird.
Survive,
Yeah, I was gonna
the
say
zombie
survival
one.
one. Yeah, and then part of Metal Gear Solid 5, I don't think he did. They cut like the last.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had a split during the development of 5,
yeah.
and I think that's why I think that they had a like the ending of the game got cut or something. They
The
didn't get to finish
last
it the way they wanted to.
20%, like, they cut a whole level, and it basically had, like, the epilogue with Liquid Snake, and yeah, it's crazy that all that got cut. I actually don't like Metal Gear Solid 5. It doesn't feel like a Metal Gear game,
Hmm.
and, it felt very rushed to me, and I think a lot of it has to do with where it doesn't feel like a Metal Gear game is just the open world aspect of it. Um,
Okay.
it reminds me of the PSP games, and I think that's what it was going for, like Peace Walker, but it was like Peace Walker times 100. And I wasn't a big fan of the design. And it's funny too because DJ mentions Metal Gear 4 being the worst offender in terms of cutscenes.
Yeah,
Some of those
got the
cutscenes,
longest cutscenes, but it's
like
his favorite for some reason.
yeah, the gameplay that's there is really good, and it took such good advantage of the PS3's technology at the time, and just did stuff that nothing else was doing on it. And yeah, it was like a showpiece for the console, but it was a really well polished game. I don't think that there's much in terms of polish that has come close to that game. And that's just my opinion, but as far as polish, it is a really solid and polished game. You know,
And DJ's kind of agreeing with you, saying that
yeah,
MGS5 is decent stealth third-person game, but it's not doesn't feel like a proper Metal Gear game. So
yeah.
I will have to take your guys' word for it.
It's worth checking out at least. I mean, if for curiosity's sake, but it just even in terms of the story, and I won't spoil anything. I know the game's been out for oh Lord, 8 years now. That's hard to believe. Um, but it just it was weird because it also felt a little episodic because they came out with Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes first. Which
Yeah. Uh,
yeah,
so given that I am an Xbox guy and a completionist, and I had this mental image of Metal Gear games being quite long, and I think I got the Ground Zeroes through Games with Gold or something, and it has like a real short, like 6-hour completion time. I'm like,
oh, it's less
what?
than that.
Something's not
Yeah,
right about that. So
yeah.
I've never really looked into it, but I just thought that was odd.
Yeah. It felt like a demo to me. And I really mean that because it's like once you learn like where the two characters are, I mean it can you can run blast through it. I beat it in a half hour. And I remember being like, "Did I really pay?" I think at the time it was like $25 when it launched. It was like, oh, what a steal. Maybe it was 30. But it was like kind of like set up like the VR missions too. They're like, yeah, it's like 6 hours, but if you got to do the VR stuff, which has always been, all that extra.
Now we're not talking about like VR stuff. It's
No,
just like
no.
VR in the
Yeah.
game, right?
Yeah, yeah, like what they call the VR missions. I forget what they called them in Ground Zeroes, but there were like little things that you could do, and it was just set in a little island sandbox, a very small island sandbox, and they did padding and fluff, but it's just funny too. Like games design has shifted so far away. I don't want to use the term argue with people, but like I debate with people a lot that like game design has like changed for a lot of stuff that just used to be complementary in a game, like the bonus stuff, things to keep you playing and going back to the game is now DLC, or they've
Or
shifted the design to
microtransactions.
or microtransactions, or they've shifted the design to open world. So instead of making that content optional, like, hey, you played through the story, you played through the beat of this game. Well, here's your padding, and you have no choice. You got to do this padding. But you can do it however you want, but you have to do this padding, the stuff that's like, it feels a little disconnected. That's why, for the most part, I'm not the biggest fan of open world games. Like, I like my Spider-Man games, I like my Infamous games. I like Cyberpunk for what it was worth. I played that, but Red Dead and GTA, they just kind of like after a while, I just get tired of them because I just want to play that game's story, and then at a different point, at a later point.
I like I can't say I like open world games in general, but I typically like them. I'm just not a fan of Rockstar. I don't enjoy their games. I think they were quite boring.
Yeah,
So
it's funny too. 'Cause, like, people look at me and I have two heads, and I'm like, I just did not. They're like, I liked Red Dead 1 because it was fresh for the time, but Red Dead 2 is like they went for this realism, and I think they've had this problem after the GTA 3 trilogy, like where they did 3, Vice City, and San
in San
Andreas.
Andreas.
I don't like GTA 3. It's just I think that the game, the level design, like, go back and replay it. It just has not aged well. But Vice City is great. San Andreas is amazing. And I think after that they just got they wanted to get into this like little bit of realism that was they shouldn't have. Where your characters are slowing into vehicles. And when I was playing Red Dead 2, and I'm like, it's taking me, I don't care if it's realistic. It takes me 20 seconds to get on this horse. Like, come on.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
yeah, I know because so many people claim that like that's one of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah.
But especially when you're talking about like time, it's not
Yeah.
so bad now. But I've heard that was literally one of the worst games of all time for like loading times. You'd literally wait for the game to load for like 5 minutes.
I remember. I mean, I had it on when the Series X came out. That thing had I think it had an SSD in it, and that was how I initially played it. Um,
Yeah, that was when Series X
yeah.
was new and they were kind of
Well, yeah,
comparing the speed test.
yeah.
Red Dead 2 was one of the examples and how
Well,
much quicker
not
it loaded.
Series X, but the One X, because
The One X, okay.
Microsoft and their naming conventions that throw everybody off.
Well, that was one of the games that they
Yeah,
used as an example when the
yeah,
Series X was coming out to show how much faster it is. But yeah, the One X, that was because I have a One X as well. It's actually right over there. I got that a few months after it came out, which I'm pretty sure was in 2018.
yeah. Did you get the Project Scorpio one?
How would I know? Would it say so on it?
Yeah, it said it was like a launch edition, limited edition for the
Oh,
One X. It had like green. It was a really cool looking console. I'll pull it up and I'll put it in the private chat.
okay. But no, I wasn't actually even planning on upgrading to the One X from the base Xbox One. But a couple months after the One X came out, my base Xbox One died. So I was
Mhm.
like, oh well, I guess I'll upgrade then.
Yeah, actually, it just said Project Scorpio on it. It didn't have. It had like an interesting texture on it.
Okay,
Um,
I don't think I've seen one of those.
but yeah, it was. It was the one that I used to have, and then when I got the Series X, I sold it to a buddy of mine. I was like, yeah,
Okay.
I don't need this one anymore.
So, so since we're talking a lot about Metal Gear, is that one of your favorite franchises?
It's up there. I would say. I mean, Metal Gear Solid holds a special place in my heart because it was a the PlayStation 1 era was where I was online. So Game FAQs and IGN, the early
I was
days of
on Game.
IGN.
I call it Game
Yeah.
Facts, but yeah, I was on there
Yeah,
all the
Game
time.
Facts, Game FAQs. And you know, 1998, I was in middle school still, and I had this game, and my friends had this game, and you're going online and learning all the ins and outs of the game, and you know, back then, it's funny now. We were talking about backlogs. It's like we have disposable income. A game comes out, we're like, oh, I'm gonna get it. Back then, it was like birthday, Christmas, save your money. This is your game. This is the game you're gonna be playing for the next 6 months.
Yeah, there's also a lot less games, and back then it was basically every game was $60. Now we've got a nice indie space where you can get games anywhere from $5 to $60.
Yeah. I mean, the PlayStation 1 era was fun too, because the games actually, it was the first time we saw a price decrease in games, because when they moved to discs, it was a lot easier to make and manufacture games, and
than a cartridge.
We went from games being like $70, $80, $90 in the 90s down to 50 and 40. The six, and to DJ's point, I remember the $60 price point didn't kick back in for disc-based games until the Xbox 360. And I remember seeing that sticker shock, because the 360 was the first of that generation to come out by a year. They beat they beat Sony and Nintendo.
Yeah.
And one of my haunts, and I ended up working there for a little bit, was Game Crazy. And I remember when the 360 came out, the first party Microsoft titles were 50, and the third party had jumped up to 70. And we kind of saw history repeat itself with this generation, except in reverse, where Sony was like, our games are 70, and third parties are like, no, in this economy, come on, dog. And they also know that, like, I understand the costs of games have gone up, but the things that people neglect is the cost of movies have gone up. Your ticket hasn't gone up that much. The price of a DVD or a Blu-ray or a rental hasn't gone up all that much. And it's because more people consume that media, more people buy the movies, just with gaming. And also, the biggest fallacy to the increased cost of games is finding a game that doesn't have DLC. The only one I've played this year that doesn't have DLC is Immortals of Aveum. That is the only game I've bought that was complete.
I'm looking forward to playing that at some point.
It's great. It's great. And it broke my heart that the developer, it was an EA original game, which I think probably was like a black eye on it from the get-go. It had no advertisement, but it was the first commercial game outside of Fortnite that ran on Unreal Engine 5. So it was kind of a tech showcase, and that piqued my interest. Hijibi Gamer was playing it. She was talking about it, and I was like, yeah.
Hijibi Gamer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was like, this game's great. I really recommend it. It's an original IP, original characters. And if you like Hexen, did you ever play Hexen back in the day?
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
Magic-based first-person shooter.
Okay. And speaking of Immortals of Aveum, at least on Xbox, it is currently 40% off. So it's $42 down from $70, and it only came out like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I highly recommend that game. Like, when I first started playing it, I was like, I don't know about this. After you get through the initial segment, I started to really enjoy the characters. I started to really enjoy the story, how it unfolded, the environments, the game design, the fact it's a complete game. Like I said, it just breaks my heart that game got no love or support. And we're that sort of game where you're getting a complete experience outside of Nintendo it's a dying thing. Everything is like, we talk about microtransactions, but it's just like we're paying $60-$70 for what's starting to become more and more like a mobile experience, where it's like, oh, you want this? It's like, I mentioned Mortal Kombat 1 earlier, and it's just like, you play a Mortal Kombat game in the past, and it's like your other color palettes are available, other costumes you unlock, and Mortal Kombat 1 is such a grind. And then they have a Fortnite style store. They're like, oh, hey, here's a fun costume, $9.99. It's like, this is disgusting. And people are paying for it.
Yeah, pretty much all the, AAA big name releases definitely have microtransactions or DLC or something. I play a lot of indie stuff too. So I play a lot of stuff that doesn't have DLC.
Yeah.
But
are you a Devolver fan?
I do like a lot of Devolver games. I've played quite a few of them. I couldn't name any of them off the top of my head, but I could go look at my collection list by Devolver and be like, oh yeah, I like that one. I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah, they're one
Um,
of my favorites.
a lot of their games come to Game Pass as well, so which is
Yeah,
why I played a lot of them. And given that Immortals of Avium is an EA game, it will likely come to Game Pass Ultimate via EA Play at some point.
yeah.
So at that point, that's probably when I'll play it because I'm very
You know,
frugal gamer. I barely buy anything that's not 50% off or more, and even when I do, I use my Microsoft Rewards points because I'm an
fair
Xbox
enough.
guy.
Yeah.
So I barely spend. I buy a lot of games, but I barely spend anything out of pocket.
Oh, it's smart. I mean, you don't make money by spending money.
Yeah, and that way I can pretty much guarantee that it's a complete game. All the bugs have been worked out.
Yeah.
I can get all the DLC all in one package for a good deal.
It's a remake, but I should give EA credit because the Dead Space remake, which came out I think in
Oh,
January, that's coming to Games Pass this month. Which
it just got announced
Mhm.
yesterday that it's coming to Game Pass.
and that's a complete game. Now, granted, like I said, it's a remake, so it darn well better be a complete game. But
Yeah.
I wholly recommend checking that out, especially if you love horror games.
I'm not big on scary, but I know it's one of those staples. Like everyone
Yeah,
says, it's so great. So I will play it at some point because if it is scary, if it's
more
sci-fi
tense.
scary, I'm definitely
Yeah,
more okay with it than
it's like
like
the thing.
something
If you like the thing,
that's I so um I have never seen it.
oh wow,
Someone was just was it Salty Nerd podcast? Somebody was just talking about it recently, and they were like, "Yeah, you need to see it." So,
absolutely, yeah,
sci-fi horror,
great game.
I'm more okay with. Like Alien, Salty Inner Podcast was just watching Alien last night in the watch party. I've seen what's that other big sci-fi horror movie? Event Horizon.
Yeah. If you like
Uh,
so you named Alien, you named Event Horizon. If you like those two, The Thing is the other component of it. I guarantee you'll like that space because it is more tension than like scares and jump scares. It's just your best way to play without like you know throwing your controller is just play through your TV speakers. Don't put your headset on, your headphones on.
oh,
Um,
my good buddy Nerdporeal Lifeform hopping in the chat.
Alien
What's up,
Isolation.
dude? And saying Alien Isolation. We were just talking about that in the
Yeah.
Salty Nerd afternoon stream just today because they were talking about Alien. Yeah, that one I'm not planning on playing that one ever.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, that game is structured like Amnesia almost, where it's
but let's see here. Talking about Dead Space. Yeah.
Mhm.
So because I've never played it. I was talking to my party chat co-host Mark the Cyborg when it came out earlier this year because he streamed it and because I was like, should I play the original and then the remake, or should I just skip the original and go with the remake? He's like, the remake is an excellent
Yeah,
replacement for the original.
I
So
wholeheartedly agree.
when I do play it, because I do plan to play the whole trilogy,
Yeah,
but I think I'm gonna skip the original and just play the remake
the remake does change some stuff around here and
for the
there,
positive, some
but
quality of life
yeah,
improvements.
quality of life is a big one. The fact that they went back, I mean, for the most part, the game is just a facelift. Um, they got the voice actor from 2 and 3, the face and voice actor for Isaac, which I really liked the fact that they did that because it adds a continuity to it. And that's like, okay, when you guys inevitably remake 2, and 2 is my favorite of the trilogy.
Okay.
Um, 2 also is legit scary. So it's like if you play Dead Space 1, it may prep you for 2. And then 3 is not scary at all, which was like,
I know that's why
you
a
know,
lot of people. Given that I haven't played it, I have heard a lot of trash talk that the third one is not a good game. But that's what I'm most interested in because I'm not
yeah,
big on scary. And Nerdporeal
it's,
saying, "Do you consider Super
yeah,
Metroid a sci-fi horror?" I say it's sci-fi horror inspired, but I definitely wouldn't
yeah.
call it a sci-fi
There,
horror.
there's elements of Super Metroid that are creepy, like when you first land on the space station and you realize, oh, those are scientists in the foreground. They died. Uh, Also, the one boss you fight in the magma pits, and the skeleton comes back. You Was it Magmor?
Kraid?
Was his name? No, no. It was.
It's
He
been
looked
so long since I
similar
played Super Metroid.
similar to Kraid. I think his name is Magmor.
That would
But
make sense because in Metroid Prime there is an area called Magmore Caverns.
I'm trying to find it, but he's like this red. No, it's not Magmore, but he's like this red lizard-looking beast that comes out, and you fight him, and eventually you push him back into the lava, and
Oh, Nerdportal saying, yep, it's
yeah,
Magmore.
yeah, and then like after you beat him, you're like, okay, you're good, and then like this arm, like the skeletal arm with like some melting flesh, comes Crocomire. That's right.
Oh,
It's, yeah, DJ's
I don't
got it,
remember that name.
and yeah, and he comes up and he's like charging you, and then eventually he falls into like a pile of bones, and it's like one of those things that's so un Nintendo. And then of course the ghost ship area where you fight Fantoon, yeah, that stuff's creepy. When I was a kid, I had Metroid on the NES, and that there was some of the music would legit creep me out. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's definitely got, yeah, well, like Nerdportal said in his Super Metroid video, he's got a really great video on it that the Metroid was inspired heavily by Alien.
Oh yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of names and art design and stuff.
Especially the
So
Chozo. The Chozo look so much like the engineers. Like when you see in the first Alien when they go in and the engineers like seated, and back then nobody really knew what it looked like because all of a reference was blurry VHS captures or reference photos. But yeah, no, there's huge Alien influence there, especially
yeah, DJ was saying that Dead Space 2 is a masterpiece of sci-fi
I
horror.
I completely concur with that statement. It's like nothing else, and I hope that if they do it, they keep it intact like they did with the Dead Space remake, where it's like a facelift. You know, in some cases, some of the people that were on the recordings, they gender swapped them, didn't care. It didn't change the core of the game. The fact of the matter is that they added quality of life improvements. They made the
Okay.
Ishimura, the ship. They actually went back and redesigned the ship a little bit. The areas you're in are the same, but the fact of the matter is that they made the Ishimura like an actual ship. So instead of like, hey, you're gonna get on the tram and go here, and then they like looked at it and they're like, yeah, this layout doesn't really make sense. And you could go back and revisit previous areas. So they kind of
That's
made
what I've
it
heard.
Metroid like. It's not open world, but it's open. And
It's more connected rather
yeah,
than segmented.
yeah, it feels like Metroid Prime does in a sense.
Yeah, because Metroidvania is my genre of speciality. So that would be a really cool if they did make it like
Yeah.
a Metroidvania, because that's one thing that I really, because there are a lot of Metroidvanias come out, because it's
Yes.
especially for indie developers, it's a pretty easy genre to get into.
Yep.
But when it comes to 3D Metroidvanias, we've gotten almost none. We got the Metroid Prime trilogy, which was amazing.
Yep.
Um, a lot of people consider Arkham Asylum a Metroidvania.
I agree with that.
Um,
And I think people get it confused with City and Origins
yeah, those ones are too
yeah,
open. They're not like
yeah,
a
they're open
interconnected
world
small
games.
world.
Yeah.
But other than that, really the one of the only other 3D Metroidvanias I can think of, and it's one that I really like, is probably one that not many people know about, but it's called Journey to the Savage Planet.
Yep.
That was a really good game. We need more 3D Metroidvanias, and I don't know why
I
there aren't more.
I agree. I think the problem is that everybody is so fixated and focused on making open world games that they would prefer to do that. And I think it's the easy way out, because it's like, well, you make an open world game, it's less intricate design. Because like when you think of a Metroidvania in 3D, it's like developing one huge 3D Zelda dungeon. And that
Yeah,
was like, I think the thing that's irked me the most. Now I love Tears of the Kingdom, I love Breath of the Wild, but the dungeons, that's the missing component in all of it. They have the shrines, but doing for me, what makes a Metroidvania game so satisfying is the progression. You can
Yes.
do this, you do that, you can go here, you can open that, you can do this, you can get there.
Yeah, one of
Um,
the key elements is the
yeah,
ability gating, where you get a
yeah,
new ability, and now you can reach areas you couldn't reach before.
yeah. I guess would you count Resident Evil games? I know you're not like a horror guy, but I kind of feel like the Resident Evil games, the early ones at least, were
I've
like
The
that.
only one I've played somewhat was I played a good chunk of Resident Evil 4, so
Yeah.
I couldn't say.
Resident Evil 4 is kind of a change because like it's semi-open, you can go back. Like Resident Evil 7 and 8 are closer where you can, you're in a kind of a secluded area. You have free reign to go back. And I love Resident Evil 7 and 8, like Biohazard and Village. I love both of those games. Um, I think you'd probably would really enjoy Village, especially since they've gone back and patched it, and there's a third person mode now. It's not the scariest game in the world. I mean, you're fighting
Hmm.
vampires and stuff.
'Cause it looked like it, but I thought Resident Evil 4 was gonna be scary going into it. I'm like, "This game isn't really
Yeah,
scary. It's creepy, but not
yeah.
scary."
If you can handle 4, you probably I'd really advise checking out 8. 7 is very scary,
Oh,
especially
I'm getting it
yeah,
mixed up. I was thinking of
yeah,
7.
yeah. 7 is especially in VR. That's like an oop, nope.
Yeah, so I had Nerdporial on for a party chat a while back. We talked about Zelda, and he's not a fan of Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. They're
I
boring.
like them, but I don't. I think Breath of the Wild was way more compelling because there really wasn't anything like it at the time. And Tears of the Kingdom, I liked, but my problem with Tears of the Kingdom is that it's a little too big for its own good, and it's a little too grindy for its own good because it's like, okay, you have this big challenge ahead of you. Go do all this side stuff because if you don't, you're not going to have good enough stuff to get you through any of the main quests. So it's like I went through, I started doing shrines, I started getting weapons, I started, you know, hoarding items and hoarding food. And I'm like, this isn't that's the thing about open world game design I just don't like for the most part is it's like you're doing all you're basically it's like game designed by a squirrel hoarding nuts for the winter, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to do an open world game and still have it, I don't know, like, feel paced correctly
Yeah.
or have the story still feel, uh, impactful, I guess,
Yeah.
because you can't really, like, say, you have to go do this first or whatever,
Yeah.
whereas, typically Metroidvania is more linear, although it is not as linear as, like a platforming game or whatever, so you do
Yeah.
have some
And
more
I don't like being
openness.
punished for playing the game. Like, oh, your weapon broke. You're out of resources. You can only hold so many resources. It's like I don't have much time. As I mentioned, I'm getting up there in age, and I'm like I need my games to be an escape. I like the power fantasy. That's why I love Spider-Man open world games because it's easy to get from point A to point B. It's quick. It's fast. You're not really grinding the little bonuses you get for doing like helping civilians out. It one, it makes you feel like Spider-Man. Two, it's quick fun hits and it doesn't take you away. You're not like, oh hey, the guy's getting carjacked, you got to go 5 miles down. You're not getting rerouted. The story's there. I mean, the story isn't that big in Spider-Man games, no matter which one you're playing, but it's fun. You get all those quick hits for, hey, here's the shocker, you got to beat him. Oh, cool. I bet this is going to be a fun boss fight. They it's like comfort food of gaming for me is what the Spider-Man open world games always are.
Okay. Yeah, now that I've got because like I said, I've never had a PlayStation, so I haven't played any of the new Spider-Man
Well,
games. But now
they're
that
on
I've got a
PC
gaming
now.
PC,
Yeah,
they're on Steam, so they're on my wish list. So
yeah.
I'll probably get them at some point.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong. The only criminal things that the Spider-Man games that Sony's put out are the stealth missions where you got to play as
Oh,
Miles
the
Mary.
forced stealth missions, I've
Yeah,
heard
God,
about those. Ruins
it's
the
like
pacing.
yeah, because it's also like another thing of modern game design that I dislike, and I think James and Kay, one of the two, has touched on this. Is that, like, you start playing a segment and it's like die, and then it's like, oh, okay, I died right here. I'm going to start. What was the point? Why didn't you just make this a cutscene? If it's like you're giving me all these infinite checkpoints to do
Oh, that's good.
you
Yeah, that's
know.
a good point too.
So Yeah.
But yeah, DJ was saying that the open world Mad Max game is excellent, which I've
I've
heard from a
heard,
lot of
yeah.
people. I have it in my backlog, but I haven't played it yet.
I think I own it on Steam. So I think it was like one of those humble bundles, and it was just like for $9.99, you get 30 games, and Mad Max was one of them. I'm like, okay, sign me up.
Nerporo's
Yeah.
got a good question here: Spider-Man or Arkham Asylum? Arkham Asylum is a
Spider-Man for
great
me.
game.
I mean, Arkham Asylum is great, but like I said, Arkham Asylum is a game you have to be in a mood to play. I love Batman. I love Spider-Man. I mean, I can grab right here. I got a Spider-Man. I got Ben Riley right there. I like I said, Spider-Man is just more of a comfort food. It fulfills that superhero fantasy. The
Understandable.
Arkham Asylum is a fantastic game, and it does make you feel like Batman, but it also makes you feel like you have to. Like, the thing that Arkham Asylum did that was so successful is not only do you feel like Batman, but you have to think like Batman. You have to be reserved. Otherwise, the inmates of the asylum will take you down pretty quickly if you don't time your moves, if you don't, you know, utilize little stealth elements and take people out accordingly. So there's strategy involved. So I think Arkham Asylum's a way more competent game than Spider-Man, but it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a while to come around on the Arkham games because at first I was not a fan of it for one reason is I did not like the combat at first
really,
because it's like I'm this super jacked, peak of human fitness Batman, and it takes me how many punches to take one guy out? But once I understood like the
yeah,
combat, it grew on me, and then I really came to like the games. But at
yeah.
first, I was not a fan of them. I'm like, why do I have to punch this one dude like 10 times to knock him out? I'm freaking Batman. Should be one punch and he's down.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I like about the Spider-Man games. You do run into some spongy enemies, but there's always ways that you can quickly take them out if you so choose. Um, but I kind of adapted to the Arkham games pretty quickly because I like that like rhythm based combat that they had in there, and it was very unique for its time. I think it was interesting too, is you got to like city and night that they made those guys like way more vulnerable, other than like the end game, and they got the riot shields and the shock batons and all that, and they got the SWAT armor.
In
That
Night,
makes
there are
more
so
sense.
many different types of enemies. It's like
Yes.
some of these fights were brutal. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta, you can't dodge this type of enemy, and you can't counter this type of enemy, and you can't punch this type of enemy. It's like trying to juggle all these things you can't do.
I will say, for an open world game, Arkham City has some of the coolest boss fights,
Yes,
for that type
agreed.
of game. That Mr. Freeze boss fight, like I just kind of wish that I could pop the game in and just, hey, can I just do this part right now? Because I really enjoy that.
That fight is an inspiration for one of the questions on my list of party chat topics that we have not talked about yet. So it'll be on a party chat at some point. But that was usually when I talk about a question, I talk about what the inspiration for the question was. So
Yeah.
the Mr. Freeze fight is definitely an inspiration for one of my party chat questions.
Nice.
So, so if you had to pick one, if you even can, do you have a favorite franchise?
Yeah, I do. It's definitely Metroid. Super
Okay,
Metroid is my favorite game of all time.
nice,
I
good answer.
Yeah, I play that game every New Year. I boot up Super Metroid one way, shape, or form. I could
Nice.
even play it right now. I got myself one of these bad boys.
Do you have,
Get
one
ready.
of those Game Boys with like all the games on it?
Yeah.
Yes, I saw. I think Jonathan Davis just got one of those too, or at least I'm pretty sure that's who I saw had a post of it. And I'm like, oh, I would love to get one of those.
Yeah, so I put in an SD card and I loaded everything up on there. Metroid Dread was fantastic.
I'm looking forward to playing that at
Oh, you
some
haven't
point.
played it yet?
I don't have a Switch. My last
Oh,
Nintendo
wow.
console was a Wii, so
Yeah. Yeah, Dread was fantastic. I was so skeptical going in because they handed everything over to Mercury Stream, and I don't want to say I didn't have a good opinion of Mercury Stream, because I thought they did an okay job with Samus Returns, the remake of
okay, you're right. The
Metroid
3DS
2.
one.
But when they did that, they did like the last 2D or it was a 2.5D Castlevania. It was set in the Lords of Shadow universe. It was like
Oh, Mirror of Fate.
Mirror of Fate. Yeah, I did not like that game.
I've started it, but I haven't beaten that one yet.
Yeah. Now I played initially on 3DS, and maybe that was the problem because on 3DS it chugged. It
Oh, okay.
was like super slow, and I was like, "Oh, this is a slog." You don't feel. It feels like you're playing a Castlevania game set in mud. Like there's glue all over the floor.
Yeah, I've got the Xbox Live Arcade version.
That one probably runs better than the 3DS.
The couple hours I played of it, I didn't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
So, okay, but yeah, that would make sense to where you're a little iffy about how they're going to handle Dread. But Dread, yeah, from everything I've heard, Dread was amazing.
Yeah, I can't really think of any, like, as far as Metroid games, like there are some that like just have kind of aged poorly. Like Samus Returns is a game that needed to be remade. It needed those quality of life improvements. I mean, Metroid Zero Mission, that's one of my favorite games. It came in and did everything that they needed to do to make the first Metroid,
modernize it.
Yeah, and for in great ways. I will argue it needed a hard mode.
Okay,
but maybe it has one. I can't remember.
It's been a long time since I played that one too, so I couldn't say.
Yeah, I don't play that one yearly, so if it does have a hard mode, let me Google.
I really need to do a Super Metroid playthrough again. It's been way too long since I played it. But
yeah, it does have a hard mode, but you have to. I believe you do have to beat
it first to get it. That makes sense.
The problem is that like I don't play that game on a yearly basis, so I do need to just go get a save and just play through it on hard mode next time. The Prime games, the only Prime I will say there's only one Metroid game that I don't really like, and that's Metroid Prime 2 because it's way too long in the tooth, and the dark sections I just don't find enjoyable. I'm even a guy that this is a hot take. Judge me all you want. I like Other M.
Okay, I did not think that Other M deserved as much hate as it got. I understand
the story
being upset about it, but I don't think it deserved that much hate. Yeah. The reason why I played it is because I'm a huge Team Ninja fan. So when I heard they were doing a Metroid, which Metroid was another of my favorite franchises, I'm like, heck yeah.
Story sucks. I mean, a lot of people got so hung up on the dynamic between Samus and Adam, and I will not argue with anybody. It's stupid. The fact that Samus, the renowned bounty hunter, needed his permission to use abilities. Come on.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb.
But
it's like I have all the things I need already, but you're telling me I'm not allowed to use them? That's really dumb.
Yeah. So that was the. But if you don't pay attention to the story, there is a fun game, and it's some of the best graphics on the Wii. There's some really good level design, some really good boss fights, especially if you complete the game and you get the bonus boss fight with Phantoon at the end.
I don't remember if I did that or not. I probably did because I'm a completionist, but I don't know for certain. It was a long time ago. But speaking of Metroid and Samus Returns, I'm curious, have you ever played AM2R?
I have.
And how would you compare that with Samus Returns? I'm curious because I have started playing AM2R, but I've only played like the first hour, and I've never played Samus Returns because I don't have my last handheld was a DS, not a 3DS.
AM2R is a way better looking game because that pixel art really stands the test of time, and it looks spot on, like what you would expect. It's Metroid 2. Had they said, "Hey, instead of making Metroid 2 for Game Boy, we're going to make it for Super Nintendo." My problem with AMR2 is the aiming, and it takes a lot of getting used to. But other than that, it's a fine game. But I think that at the end of the day, Samus Returns did the official one did the music better, and it had a little bit. So that's the thing. Is there's a trade off because I really don't like the melee stuff in Samus Returns that they did,
like and it's
and it's present in Dread, but it's executed better. Yeah, and I agree with DJ. I mean, they did have a very small team, and that team really did a good job. It's kind of a tie for me. I at the end of the day, I like
they both have their pros and cons.
Yeah, I like the presentation of of Samus Returns better. I like the music better. I like the the overall movement and aiming, but AM2R I respect a lot. I think it looks great. I like the fact that it doesn't have that weird melee stuff forced in there. So it's a trade off. I kind of wish that they could that there was a middle
Blend the
ground between
two.
the two. Yeah, like sprite work.
AAM2R,
Yeah, right.
another Metroid 2 remake.
Right, exactly. Like I would love to see it in the style of Zero Mission. Like for me, like Zero Mission is just perfect the way it looks. I love the way the backgrounds look. I love the sprite work in the game. I really thought it was a massive step up from Fusion. I like Fusion a lot.
I was
but
just going to
Fusion,
ask you, what
yeah,
was your take on Fusion? Because I
Fusion
know
was yeah.
it was a good game, but I know some people have some issues with it.
My only problem with Fusion is the same problem I have with Dread, is that the music sucks and isn't memorable.
Okay.
Well, I guess my problem with Dread too is I don't like the melee stuff, but I got used to it, and eventually it clicked for me. But I think Fusion and Dread had like the perfect difficulties for a Metroid game, and the level design in Dread was fantastic. Fusion has some less than memorable environments, but there are some that really stand out. But yes, the music is lacking. I just wish Nintendo would get I wish whoever was doing the music for Metroid Prime was just like, hey, you are the Metroid music person, because the Prime trilogy just has great music all around.
Yeah, I agree. The only one that stands out to me is one I remember of hating the music. I almost put it on mute. Was the Phazon Mines in Metroid Prime 1. I hated the music there, but everywhere else the music was great.
Yeah. I don't remember hating that music, and I played through the remaster. The remaster's fantastic too.
Yeah, when they first announced it, I was like, really, a remaster for $40? But when I heard that it's not just a new paint, coat of paint, there's actually more to it than that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I've still wait. I've got my Wii, so I could play it. The only problem is my Wii can't plug into any of my TVs because don't have the cords anymore, so I need to get the adapter for HDMI.
Yeah, I mean, they make one that's relatively cheap to get too these days. I think it's just the same one for the GameCube. No, it's not. No, because they used something different for the component cables for the Wii and the GameCube.
Yeah, but yeah, Metroid is definitely up there for one of my favorite franchises. So my favorite franchise of all time is Mass Effect.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Mass Effect 2 is like probably my top 10 favorite games of all time.
So when you were saying kind of a hot take for Other M is that my single favorite game of all time is Mass Effect 3.
Well, I can't fault you on that. I mean, and again, I loved Mass Effect 3, and I walked away from that game like, yeah, I didn't care for how the ending boiled down, and it flew in the face. And I think everybody was so reactionary to the game that they forgot. And they did do that one DLC where everybody was together.
The extended cut.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Citadel DLC, which was fantastic.
Yeah. It's about the journey, not the destination.
That's exactly what I say when I'm like, yeah, Mass Effect 3 is my favorite game of all time. They're like, what? It's like, yeah, it's more about the journey than the destination. Yeah, the destination definitely, or the ending was definitely, as someone said one of my streams recently, and I've kind of picked up on using it, is they fumbled at the 1 yard line. But the rest of the game, in my opinion, is fantastic, and a lot of people forget that just because the ending was such a disappointment.
Yeah, and like if you look at Mass Effect as a whole, I mean, they tie up so many of the characters' storylines and arcs throughout the game that the whole game itself is sort of an ending. And to look at like, okay, well, the ending of the game's 3 choices. Well, it's really Shepard's ending is 3 choices, but everybody else's ending, like, what happens to Mordin, what happens to Grunt, all of that is intrinsic to the sum of its parts. I mean, you got to look at it like that the whole game itself is an ending, and I think it's easier to accept if you look at it. I mean, everybody was laughing years ago at like when Ego Raptor did the animation of how they would have ended it, but I was just like, I was satisfied with what I played. And to be fair, the other thing too that the game did was it gave us the multiplayer, and I spent a ton of time playing that multiplayer with my friends, and I
I still
loved it.
play it regularly to this day. I was just playing it last weekend.
Oh,
I
the servers are
freaking
still up.
well, it's peer to peer, so you don't have to worry
Oh,
about
okay.
servers going down. So yeah,
Yeah,
me and my buddy IRL, we play it every couple weeks. We
sweet.
freaking love it. And I was disappointed that it didn't make it into the Legendary Edition.
Yeah.
But one thing that I don't even think because I've talked about Mass Effect a lot on my channel, given it's my favorite franchise of all time. But one thing
What's
I
your
don't
favorite class in Mass Effect?
well, when I first started, I think my first playthrough of each game was Adept, but my favorite class has come to be Vanguard.
Yeah, Vanguard's mine because the charge and the shotgun.
Charge, yes.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so much fun.
I'm very up in your face type of
Yes.
gameplay where I know a lot of people love the Infiltrator, but I hate playing the Infiltrator because sniper rifles are cool, but yeah, just playing with sniper rifles is not my preferred way to play in Mass Effect.
Yeah, same.
But a lot of people consider Mass Effect 2 the greatest of the franchise, and a lot of people even consider it one of the greatest games of all time, which I definitely wouldn't argue with.
Yeah.
But Mass Effect, the funny thing about it is that Mass Effect 2 almost doesn't really even fit in the trilogy. So in that Mass Effect 3 is much more of a sequel to Mass Effect 1 than Mass Effect 2 is. Because that was kind of disappointed in how they started all these story threads in Mass Effect 1, and they don't get touched on basically at all in Mass Effect 2, but then they get resumed and completed in Mass Effect 3, which a movie franchise that basically had the same, very similar thing. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Star Wars.
Not what I was thinking.
Well, I was going to say the sequel trilogy, but even though they didn't really close much out in Rise of Skywalker, but yeah.
I get it, but no, what I was going to say is the Starship Troopers, because there's a Starship Troopers 2, which literally has nothing to do with the first movie. But then Starship Troopers 3 is actually basically a sequel to the first one. Yeah. So I felt Mass Effect is very, very much the same way.
I felt they would have benefited from one of the things that I dislike in movies and games is this whole idea that things need to be confined to a trilogy. I think Mass Effect would have been better as an ongoing, like, instead of like, we need to conclude it in the third game. Because
why can't it be 4 games or 5 games?
Right, exactly. I mean, it could have been an ongoing thing where, hey, in this game, certain things are going to wrap up, but we're going to introduce new things, like make it serialized almost, if you will. I mean, I get what you're saying with Mass Effect 2. I liked what they set up in Mass Effect 2 because I liked Mass Effect 1, but it didn't blow my socks off. I played Mass Effect 2 after it started getting the buzz that it got, and I fell in love with the characters in a way that I didn't with the first game.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the Mass Effect 2 was the character building was like way more than the first one.
The only thing I didn't like about Mass Effect 2 was the planet mining, but at the end of the day, I was like, this is so much better than the Mako missions or just scouting out planets with the Mako.
That's true.
What did they have in 3?
It was basically the same as Mass Effect 2, but it was toned way
right.
down. You basically only need to do like 1 planet per system, and you get the thing that you need. It's not like you have to go and scan. You basically like go to the planet and like throw a probe.
God, I felt like I was just drawing on an Etch-a-Sketch playing Mass Effect 2, doing that. But I was so invested in the characters, like, I'm going to do this anyway. And remember, they had that little tie-in mobile game where you got like some small item.
Yeah, I used I don't remember the full extent of the companion app. We actually talked about companion apps on a party chat not too long ago, because there was a time where like every game had a companion app.
Specifically EA, they were really pushing it.
Yeah, but I used the Mass Effect 3 companion app because when you play the multiplayer, there's the galactic readiness, and there's like 5 or 6 different segments of the galaxy, and the lowest it can actually go is 50%. But if you play, you can get up to 100%, and that increases your galactic readiness in the single player game, so that it makes it easier to get the best ending. And also, when you have all regions at 100%, you get an additional 5% XP in multiplayer.
Mhm.
And so I use the companion app so you can keep your readiness at 100% without actually playing the game.
Ah,
Um, and I did that for a long time until the companion app basically went offline.
yeah.
But yeah, there was a companion app for, I think the Mass Effect Andromeda companion app still is active. I haven't
Really?
opened it in years, but you can do a very similar thing and actually get in-game rewards without actually playing the game.
How much did that game was that like a day one for you?
No, I was very excited about it,
Yeah.
but I didn't actually play it until about a year after it came out, and I got it on a sale for like $10.
I
And I did also thought it did not deserve the hate that it got. I don't think it was great. It definitely didn't live up to the original trilogy, but I don't think it was as bad as most people said.
Mhm. I didn't play through it. I had a friend like struggle session with me, like talk me out of it. He's like, no, you're not buying this. I'm like, we're talking. I know. It's like, man, I like Mass Effect. I want to see where they're going. He's like, no, don't buy it. And he's showing me all the stuff. And I'd seen all the stuff, but I was, a fan of the franchise, and it was a different climate back then. It was like, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I'm just gonna buy a game regardless because I'm so invested in the franchise. And my buddy was like, no, don't. It was like that one episode of Family Guy where Joe kept saying a quagmire. Nope, don't. Good, don't.
Yeah, so and because I played it a year after, like I was saying earlier, I got to play it basically after all the bugs were patched, so I didn't really run into any of that. But yeah, the story was lackluster. The enemy, they are called the Ket, were very underwhelming. You're a Pathfinder for whatever the heck that means. It's basically like the N7 of Mass Effect Andromeda, but it really doesn't mean anything. It's like, what's so special about a Pathfinder? Like being an N7, that means something.
Yeah,
But being a Pathfinder, it's like, my dad's a Pathfinder and now he's gone, so I inherited it. Now I'm the Pathfinder.
yeah,
What does that mean? There was no like urgency to it.
yeah. They did a great job of setting it up with Anderson and Shepard in the first game, and there was weight and merit to his promotion.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
I've got it right here. I've talked about it a few times, but the Mass Effect novels are excellent. I read the first one before the game came out, and it takes place about 20 years before the game,
Yep.
the first Mass Effect game, and it's all about Anderson and Saren, and basically Saren testing him it, to see if he's worthy to become the first human Spectre.
Hmm.
But Saren doesn't like humans, so he basically sabotaged him at every
Right.
point. But great book. But it was nice in Andromeda going back to having open worlds to explore, and the Mako, which is called the Nomad, is infinitely better than the Mako. The only thing that it doesn't have is a cannon, so you can't shoot anything. So you have to get out and do combat on foot. But it's way easier to drive. It's got thrusters, so you can get up mountains easier. So it's nice to have some open world exploration back, because they basically didn't have any open world exploration in Mass Effect 2 and 3, which was a little bit of a bummer. But the combat is arguably the best in the franchise.
What did you think about, so Mass Effect 3 you said is your favorite. I think one thing that, looking back, and I had to like make sure I remember it correctly. I think that the biggest fumble that they had in the game, outside the endings, was making Javik the Promethean a DLC character.
Oh, yeah. So I bought the like deluxe edition on day one of Mass Effect 3, which I didn't even know what came with it. I just bought it, and it included the Javik DLC. I didn't even know until after I beat the game that Javik was a DLC character, and it
Yeah.
blew my mind. I was like, wait. You're telling me that you can actually play the game without Javik even in it? How does that make any sense? And it was a day one DLC. So when I found that out, I was like, OMG, what? WTF? How can that even be possible? He's so integral to the game and the story. I've never played it without Javik, so I don't even know how that would even work.
Well, same. I've never played without him either, because I got the deluxe version as well, but I knew he was DLC, and then I was curious how it was going to be handled, whether it was going to be like a footnote, and it's really not. Um, I just never understood why they made that decision, why they would lock away a character that should be so big in the story. Yeah,
Yeah, that was at the epitome of the time of cut parts of the game off and sell them separately as DLC. Which another game I've talked about a few times that I actually went on like a 30-minute rant on an Xbox podcast is Azura's Wrath. Do you know anything about Azura's
yeah.
Wrath?
I own that game.
So I got because I bought that game probably around 2018 when it was on sale. I got it and all the DLC for probably like $7, but I didn't actually end up playing it until earlier this year, and I did the completion. And the entire last act of the game was the real ending, and
Yes.
it's a paid DLC.
Yeah, and yeah, that made no sense to me at all.
And that came out, I'm pretty sure that came out in 2012 as well, which is the same year that Mass Effect 3 came out. Not that they're, Azura's Wrath is Capcom, and Mass Effect is EA, but
Yeah.
I don't think Capcom. I haven't played a whole lot of Capcom franchises, but other than Mega Man, because Mega Man's one of my favorite franchises ever. But I know I played pretty much all the Mega Man games. I know they're not notorious for doing that, but I don't know if other Capcom franchises are notorious for cutting off parts of games and selling as DLC. But I don't think they have the reputation quite the same as EA does.
Yeah, EA did that whole Project $10. Remember that?
That does not sound familiar.
Yeah, they did that whole Project $10, where it was they were cutting out content. They were cutting out content from games, like the multiplayer, or the most famous one was the Saboteur, where
they were just talking about that on Side Scrollers the other day.
Yes. Yeah, Razor Fist was talking about that, where if you wanted to like do the brothel stuff, like like Larry Bundy talks about it. It's like they're charging you for nudity.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. I never played the Saboteur,
Yeah.
but I remember hearing about the nudity was DLC in the game after the fact.
So yeah, they did that. There was plenty of games where, because the whole idea was with Project $10 was they're trying to target used game sales. So it's like, hey, we put a code in your box that's a one-time use code.
Oh, that's what what you're referring to. Yes, I just didn't realize there was a name for that. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Yep.
That was a big thing, and I mean, thankfully it's not a thing anymore, but I remember that being a big hot button issue back then.
It does tie back into what my concerns with the loss of physical gaming is. People are choosing convenience over preservation and the ability. Like I if you know me, I'm a huge Transformers fan. I talked briefly about Figure Action. That's my show. That's the show that I founded and created and produced for. We talk action figures. We love licensed properties. There are several games from the Transformers franchise that I love. The War and Fall
for Cybertron. Yeah. I've heard those are great games.
Transformers Devastation. Platinum Games did that. So
Platinum did a Transformers game?
Yes, they did. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, and the sad part is it's been delisted. They lost the rights to it. And I think Activision published it. So if this Microsoft deal goes through, because Hasbro is interested in working with Activision to bring back the
Activision. Yes, published by Activision, developed by Platinum.
And it's great because they got the old voice actors back together. They got not only Peter Cullen, but they got Dan Gavildsen. I can never say his name right. The original voice of Bumblebee. Michael Bell, who's like in his 80s, coming back for Sideswipe and Prowl. They got Frank Welker to do Megatron and Soundwave. They did a fantastic job with that game. And so if you like Platinum,
I do like Platinum games.
Yeah, you'd be right at home in this game. But that's the thing is, like, people don't realize that, like,
it does say that it is available physical as well.
Yeah, it is.
At least on Xbox.
Yeah, you can go and find a physical copy still somewhere. The prices might be a little jacked up, but it's just like I've gone through this all the time. Mortal Kombat 9 is probably my favorite Mortal Kombat game. That's just like an
Okay.
S tier game for me.
I think that's James's as well.
Yeah, yeah, we are like, we are in agreement on that. And why is that game delisted now? I think it might be the Freddy Krueger stuff.
Delisted?
Yeah. Yeah, you cannot get that game on Steam. You can't get it on PlayStation or Xbox. You have to have a physical copy. Now, fortunately, I still have my physical copy for PS3 with Kratos as the bonus, the guest character, who was awesome, and they really did a good job of you know making him feel like he's part of the universe. Um, but that's the thing that the people realize is that, like, in the digital space, if a game gets delisted, you can't legally obtain it, and that's a problem. You know.
Fortunately, at least I know on Xbox this is the
Mhm.
case. I don't know much about Steam because I haven't been much of a Steam gamer, or just any PC platform. But I know on Xbox, even if it's been delisted, if you
Well,
did buy
yes,
it beforehand, you can always
yeah,
re-download it.
that's
But
that's
yeah,
the case on every platform, be it
okay,
Nintendo, be it Steam, be it PlayStation, Microsoft. Yeah, that's across the board. You can do that.
yeah. If you didn't buy it
But
when it was available, then you're screwed.
yeah, Nintendo sets a bad precedent because they've shut down the Wii storefront, they've shut down the 3DS and the Wii U storefronts. You know, they didn't need to do
They
that.
removed games for no reason, like that
Yeah,
Mario
Mario. Well,
trilogy, that
Mario
like a year ago.
35. Yeah, Mario 35 well, it's free, but it's baked into your Nintendo Switch Online subscription, which they shouldn't
Oh,
have. They have no business being in the subscription business, if you ask me. And I love Nintendo, but it's just they're hey, us too, give us $20 to $50 every year. For minimal service that's nowhere near as good as what Microsoft was doing in 2002,
yeah.
21 years ago, which it's insane to me to think that there are kids today who are old enough to drink that we're alive with online gaming better than what Nintendo puts out,
Yeah.
in 2023. It's almost 2024.
Yeah, I
And,
always give them crap about how their Nintendo, whatever you want to call their online service, is basically
yeah,
still in the dial-up era. That's
yeah.
someone I've never seen before. Hello,
Oh,
Princeton
Princeton. Yeah,
Phalanx.
Princeton's an awesome dude. Princeton watches figure action, and
Thanks for joining us for talking
yeah,
video
good to see
games.
you, buddy. Yeah, it's like I love me some Nintendo, but it's a scary precedent that there's so many games that are gonna be lost to time. I know Craig was talking about it on Screw Attack the other day. Like, he loves those Konami remakes that they did for Castlevania and for Contra, and they're lost to time. There's got to be a way. Now, in the Wii days, it was easier to back stuff up, and so going to go back to what I said earlier when I said I'm the last person on earth that says there ought to be a law for that. There just needs to be something from a preservation standpoint, not just for games, but for movies and for music, that if you buy this, you own a license to have this as it was moving forward. And you, as a publisher, have the ability, whoever is the rights holder to this game has the ability to sell it as is moving forward. Because that's what I worry about too with movies is people watch stuff on streaming. I'm still very much I don't have any 4K Blu-rays up here. I moved them downstairs. But I still like having my 4K Blu-rays, because even though we have very good internet here, stuff on streaming isn't always available. I'm a special features guy. People don't realize that you're moving to digital. You don't get commentary anymore. You don't
Yeah.
get behind the scenes stuff for most stuff anymore. You don't get art books. And for people that are fanatics of a movie, if I like a movie enough to buy it, I want the supplementary stuff. And
Yeah, you're not getting
yeah,
the Lord of the Rings, extended
right.
editions with, 3 discs a movie, or the 10-disc Matrix set with
Yeah.
4 behind the scenes DVDs.
Right. And for guys like us that go and talk about this stuff, it's like we like to have that reference. We like to hear from the likes of Peter Jackson to say, like, what was your thought process? It's so funny too, because it's been making the rounds again. But I saw it years ago on one of the Lord of the Rings DVDs, where they were talking about um oh God, I had his name right on the tip of my tongue. The actor that plays Saruman, Christopher
Christopher Lee?
Lee. Christopher Lee talking about his time in the military, knowing what it sounds like when someone gets stabbed in the back. And it's so funny to me that that's making its way onto like these viral clips and all, where people are like, "Oh my god, I never knew that." And it's like, yeah, we used to have these things called DVDs where if you really liked a movie, they had these special features where you got to see how it was made and insights and little factoids you didn't know. Like the Transformers DVD that came out when they had like one of the anniversaries of the '86 movie, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, top 5 movies of all time. And they had like, remember pop-up video on VH1 back when they used to play music videos?
Oh, no, I've never saw that because I never had cable. So,
well, it was basically they would come with little pop-ups that would tell you things about the music video or the song that you wouldn't know. As much opposition as I have to streaming, I will say Prime Video does do a really cool thing that I discovered because when I was on Mephisto's channel, and we were between talking about Falling Down or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'd never seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I love Falling Down. I was like, I want to talk about Falling Down.
Is that a movie?
Mm-hmm, with Michael Douglas.
Never heard of Falling Down. I've heard of the Eternal Sunshine. I've never seen that one, but I've heard of it. But I've never heard of Falling Down.
Really good movie. Both of them are really good movies, but I'd never seen Eternal Sunshine. And Eternal Sunshine, I'm watching on Prime Video. There's a little thing in the upper left that gives you facts about the movie as you're watching. I'm like, well, that's cool. Yeah, and no other streaming service that I'm aware of does anything like that.
I've not heard of that.
No, but that's the only place on streaming where I've seen any of that.
What's up, R2? Glad you could hop in and say hi.
So, but it's just stuff that people don't realize that they're missing out on, and it's just like how do you change minds? I think people were more concerned about convenience, and it's so weird how we went from that's funny, the secret falling down. Let's get back up.
Let's get back up.
Yeah.
You got the Jacob Ironside dad jokes coming in the chat.
But we went from an era where people were very, they wanted the most out of their dollar. They wanted the most out of their product. They wanted a good quality product. They demanded things. And now in the face of convenience, people are, to tie this back into like the early Twitter comment where the most mild criticisms of a video game get like these white knights all over you, where you're like, hey, I don't like the fact that Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't have stage fatalities, or the hitboxes are broken, or invasion modes was broken, or as I'm playing the game in the middle of some of the fights, the sound will completely cut out, or this or that. And it's just like, this is me as a lifelong fan, somebody that has a Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet in his basement, who's played every single installment of the game, including Special Forces. Suddenly, I've got somebody accusing me of being a minor, telling me how wrong I am because my $1 million corporation. You can't talk bad about my $1 billion.
Defend the corporation.
Yes, and it's just it's like, look, I'm not anti-capitalist. I'm not going to get into politics on anything. I'm not anti-capitalist. I'm pro-consumer, and it's just like, what happened to people being pro-consumer and wanting the best and wanting competition? And it's like you run into everybody that's just like, well, the game's free on Games Pass. I'm like, that's not free. You're paying for a service.
And that's why I would say it's free on Game Pass.
Yeah. The only things that I look at on Games Pass is not going anywhere, first-party titles. But it's like the Netflix fallacy. I know so many people. There was a time where I bought Blu-rays for literally pennies on the dollar because people had Netflix. A movie would hit Netflix, and they're like, I don't need my DVD anymore. And I'd be like, I'll take it.
That movie might not be there forever.
They didn't have the
coming in and out of the service all the time. So it's my biggest complaint about Game Pass. But
well, that's first party titles is like where I go for it, and I just kind of treat it as a rental service for the most part.
It's most games will stay at least a year. A lot of times it'll be longer than that, but usually it's a year, except for big name games like some of the GTAs have come on a few times.
Yeah,
and they're only there for like 3 months at a time because the deal they work out with I think however the deals work out is that they have to pay them way too much more compared to the other games.
Yeah, and then GTA 5 recently came back But it's also like, who doesn't own? I mean, it's funny. I say who doesn't own it, but you look at the sales charts and it's constantly in the top 5, and it's
Yeah.
like, who?
How do you not have this game
Yeah,
already? Who's still buying this?
yeah,
But one thing I wanted to ask you about a few minutes ago on your comment of like you should be able to buy this game as it is in its current state and not have
mhm,
it altered. But like I totally understand where you're coming from on that. But that also makes it like when like they update games, maybe not even to change something like that, but to
right.
fix
Bug
something because
fixes.
it's bug fixes.
Yeah,
Ideally that's all it is. But sometimes, as Mark has talked about in Party Chat a lot, is that a lot of times you get these games that are broken on release and you're paying day one
right.
to be a beta tester. It's like how would that work together? Is there
I
is
mean,
there a middle ground?
there has to be a middle ground. I mean, I think the thing is like, look, if you ship a like, say, movies are done digitally now. They don't have projectors in the movie theaters that are like traditional projectors for the most part. Sometimes they do. It's going to be a special event like an IMAX. Like Oppenheimer was a big deal over the summer because they were actually doing 16 millimeter. But say back in the days of film, if there was an error or something, I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye if you're like, hey, there's a scene that's not cropped right, or you can see a boom mic, or there's a mistake. But I think there do need to be rules that are upheld as far as you can fix things on a technical level, but content that's in there, if a consumer pays for that, they are entitled to keep that content, be it the soundtrack, be it the voice acting. Like Destiny is a good example, right? Like Peter
Yeah,
Dinklage,
live service games.
yeah, Peter
Oh yeah, the
Dinklage
Peter
phoned
Dinklage voice. Yeah,
yeah,
they
phoned
removed
in
him
that
completely.
performance, and then they came back and did Nolan North. Now I own Destiny 1 on a disc, and if I put Destiny 1 back in my PlayStation, uh, and I choose not to update it, I can hear the Dinklebot, but still,
I don't. Can you even like since that's basically like a live service game? Can you even play it if you're
I
not connected to the internet?
think it has an offline mode, but I'd have to fact check myself on that because
I
Destiny
feel like you
1 was a
can't.
weird release because it also came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Yeah,
So
it was on because I played it on 360 and it
yeah.
was out for a year or two before it came out on the next generation consoles. That one of the things
Yeah,
about Destiny was it was one of the first times where the game exists on both platforms, and one of the DLCs only came out on the new generation. So the very last DLC, which was Rise of Iron, was not released on 360. It was only released on Xbox One and PS3.
yeah, you can't. I stand corrected. It's a fully live service game. You cannot play it without internet.
That's what I thought.
So
So even if you have a
yeah,
disc in that situation,
yep,
if they shut down the servers, you got a disc that's pointless. It's coaster.
yeah.
You can't do anything with it.
Destiny 2. I know that they removed content from the game.
Yeah, we
You
talked
know,
about that. I think when
Mhm.
Hijabi Gamer was on Party Chat, how
Yeah,
they've like in Destiny 1, they had locked off content if you didn't buy the next expansion. Like you
mhm.
had access to this thing, and now you don't unless you buy the new update, which
Yeah,
I was really mad about because I didn't buy that last DLC for a really long time, but I lost access to content I previously had access to, but it didn't leave the game. Destiny 2,
yeah.
they actually had content that was actually
Oh yeah,
removed, and there's no way to play it anymore.
yep. And that's I mean, it's terrible. It's like, yeah, they moved the game to free to play, but they also didn't recognize the people that initially spent $60 on that disc for Destiny 2, that spent $40 on each instance of DLC that they put out, and to have that all locked away.
It's I paid for this
Very cool.
DLC, and then
Yeah.
you later remove it, and there's no way to play it anymore. So are you going to give me
So
my money back?
back to how to find a middle ground. It's like the rules that apply to film, because as I was saying, like you can't have, you're not going to remove songs from a movie. You're not going to re-release a movie and this has been going on even before the stuff we've been
Digital
dealing with the
media
modern
has
gamer. Yeah, I remember there was a mom and pop shop that sold games early. And when Little Big Planet came out, I got my copy of Little Big Planet like before it was supposed to come out. They had that
nice.
song that had it had lyrics in there that it was all sung in Arabic, but there was there were references to Allah, and they're like, we can't sell this game, so they recalled all the discs, and I had the recalled copy of Little Big Planet. Um,
Is that worth something?
I had keyword had I've since
Oh,
sold it,
oh,
but I
okay.
don't know if it's worth anything. Um, I'm gonna kick myself if it is,
Well,
uh,
I don't know
because
if
I
he's still here, but good night, Prince and Phalanx. Glad you could hop in for a few minutes while we chat. Um, but another thing along those lines, while you're looking that up, is like how the new, well, I guess it's not even part of the DLC, but for the new update for Cyberpunk, because you don't have to have the Phantom Liberty DLC to actually get the 2.0 update, has a lot of quality of life improvements that actually make the game better. So that'd be another thing to consider, is like, it's making the game, you're not having it fundamentally changes the game, but for the better. They're not, you know, another thing. It's like, it'd be a hard thing to do, to find a middle ground to maintain the game as it was.
yeah. Yeah, I just think that there needs to be some sort of way, whether they and again, like I hate the idea of making laws, but like go into a menu like, hey, here's everything that was in V1. You can experience the different versions, like different checks, so
Hmm.
people can have their content. But I think it's
That'd be
such a
interesting.
it's
It's
such
like
a hard
reverting
thing
to a
to
previous
navigate.
saved version of a document
Right.
in like, Microsoft
But
365.
you can do that is the point. And
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to film, you can get different cuts. Like there's Superman 2, and then there's the Donner cut, you know? And it's the Donner cut exists, and you can have the best of both worlds, whether you like the original cut of Superman 2 or you prefer the Donner cut. Most people prefer the Donner cut.
Yeah, that'd
Um,
be an interesting, do
you know,
like have like the director's cut, but for video games.
Well,
So
they used to do that, and then remember there was the Resident Evil director's cut, which I know you're not a Resident Evil fan, but it was always funny to me because the director's cut was more censored than the original release. It's just like, hey, you got DualShock support now. How about that? Uh, yeah, there's got to be a way to do it because I don't think. I think the challenge is that consumers need to be more vocal about it. The most vocal people on Twitter and Reddit are the people that are unfortunately licking the boots of the corporations, that are licking the boots of the developers and the publishers, and it's their way or the highway. And the developers and publishers aren't blind to this, so they want to signal boost those people. Yes, you know better than I do. I'm just a lowly consumer. Take my dollar. I never actually own your game. You know, they've adopted this mentality that the corporations love, and they're just using those people. We need more sensible voices in the room to tell people, hey, your hard-earned dollar needs to go further. And there was a time and a place where we as consumers were far more vocal, and we had better expectations, heightened expectations,
yep.
and we want better treatment in this space. But the problem is that a lot of people just like the convenience. They've been they've been kind of brought into this environment, and a lot of again, as I mentioned, I'm almost 40, but when I even mentioned that I still buy physical games to younger people, why would you do that? You can just download it. You don't have to drive anywhere. And when I explain it to them, it's lost on them because their sense of time in the world, it's like as you grow, when you're a kid, a minute feels like forever. When you're an adult, a minute's nothing. um
Yep.
they think that all this stuff's there and forever, and it's going to take games disappearing and stuff that they loved no longer being there for them to go, wait a minute, what happened? And I wish Scott the Woz was way more popular, because he's like one of the few Zoomers that's like completely enlightened to all this. I don't know. Do you watch his content at all?
I've heard the name, and that's about it.
He's great. I love Scott's content, and he's very sensible. And he's talked about digital games and the digital landscape and games being delisted, and he's got it. And I just hope he becomes more popular, and his message gets out there about the dangers of this stuff. And of course, seeing like Microsoft's plans for did you see those FTC leaks?
Oh, for the new console and everything?
Yeah,
Yeah, have its digital only,
yeah.
no disk drive.
Yeah, and I've unfortunately gotten in debates with people about this where I'm like, hey, you're not just losing out on on games, but you're also losing your 4K Blu-ray player. Oh, I don't watch those. I'm like, but you're losing options, taking away, and that's the problem. Is like in the past, taking away options from a consumer was never a good thing. I used to read GamePro and EGM, and
So
all of
why
them
are you
complained.
okay with this?
Yeah,
Losing more options is always better.
I was a Sega kid, and I got the Model 2, and I remember when I read that the Model 2 was mono only and it wasn't stereo, and
I
I
don't
was
even know
like,
what the Model 2 is.
it's the smaller Sega Genesis, the one that was a square versus a
Oh,
rectangle.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so that was a big deal back then that like, hey, we released a smaller Sega Genesis. Also, it's only
And
in mono.
it didn't have stereo?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a mono only, and it didn't have a headphone jack. They took away your headphone jack. And that was kind of a deal because like, when you had the Sega CD, a lot of people forget that the Sega CD was a way you could listen to CDs in your home. CD players were expensive at a time. It wasn't like you'd walk into Best Buy and hand them $20 and get a Walkman. It didn't work that way. You know, a
Yeah, they
little,
did
a
a
little,
similar
yeah.
thing with the Wii where they
Mhm.
re-released the Wii and they got rid of the GameCube controller ports.
They got rid of the GameCube controller ports and they came with the Wii Mini and they got rid of the online connectivity altogether.
I didn't even know about that one.
It was a little red unit that I think it was exclusive to Toys R Us. It was a sleek
Hmm.
looking little thing, but yeah, they did have a Wii Mini.
I didn't even know that. But yeah, we
Yeah,
played a crap load of Smash Bros. Brawl, and most of us used the GameCube controller. And so I was going to upgrade to a newer Wii because it came in
yeah,
black. And if something comes black, I want it in black.
yeah,
And it didn't have controller ports. So, like, how do we use our GameCube controller ports or
yeah.
controllers? Like,
You
you don't.
don't.
Well,
Yeah,
then I'm not using this.
yeah. Your best option was to get those third party. Remember those? They looked like GameCube controllers, but they had the little Wii connector port at the bottom.
I don't think I've even seen one of those.
Yeah, so they looked like GameCube controllers, but the solution was they plugged into the bottom of your Wii remote. So they functioned like the classic controller, but I don't think they even had vibration.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So that was and but it's funny. I can't really complain too much about that because I've always been a Wavebird guy. I
Oh,
have my
yeah.
I
Love
have
the
my
Wavebird.
original Wavebird. In fact, it was
That was
funny.
like
I
the
got
first that I think that was
Yeah,
the first time there was a first party wireless controller.
yeah, it was, and it was the first party wireless controller from any console manufacturer that I'm aware of.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I don't think any
yeah.
other console had a first party wireless controller at that point.
I
So that was kind
think
of groundbreaking.
Atari licensed one, and it worked over radio, but I don't think it was necessarily a first party controller.
Yeah, I
I
remember
might,
seeing
yeah.
wireless ones for N64, but they were always third party, like Mad Cats or something.
Looking that up now. The wireless Atari joystick was now. It's funny. Everything's coming up for the VCS, and I'm probably like the only person on earth that owns one of those things. Not the only person on earth, but
Yeah, very small user base.
yeah, it's just I got it on a Black Friday deal at Micro Center, and it's just basically it's a micro Ryzen PC. That's why I picked it up. You can load any OS on it. You can load Windows on it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to mention a few minutes ago when you're talking about basically how in service of convenience, people have lowered expectations now.
Mhm.
And a great example of that is that we've gotten so used to having broken games on release
Yeah,
that your most people who buy games day one are almost paying to be beta testers. But then
100%.
you get a
Mhm.
game that comes out that is not broken at launch, like Baldur's Gate 3, and it blows everyone away. And the other developers are like, hey, you're making us look bad. It's like,
Yeah,
no, that's you guys being crappy developers. That's not
yeah,
on Baldur's. It's kind of like the on in like school, if you're graded on a curve and you got the smart kid that's pulling up the average for everyone and making it worse for everyone else. It's like you guys need to pick up your
yeah.
game. It's not their fault that they're doing a good job.
And it's like that too, not just in gaming, but like you'll see it in like the restaurant. And I think maybe that it came from that, like, like a new restaurant will open up and it'll have issues. And, it's just the first week jitters. Keep coming back till we get it right. And it's just like I think maybe that's where places started adopting that. But again, it just comes down to us as consumers being vocal and not standing for it and saying like, hey, I think one of the other problems too is game reviews have turned from helping consumers out, like, hey,
Yeah, I know
we as
where
a
you're going
game
with this.
reviewer, we're here to help you spend your money. Like we're here to help you make informed decisions with your purchase.
So now
And
it's just shilling for the big companies
well, it's
and
not even
keeping their
that.
access.
It's people tune into game reviews for confirmation bias. We also see this in the toy world too. So, I know Princeton watches figure action, and we've talked about this before. Is like people will buy a figure, and I have friends that are pretty big toy reviewers, like Patriot Prime, T Man 978, TM Reviews. There will be somebody that there will be not somebody, but there'll be multiple people that will go into their comment section and say, "You missed this, you missed that, you didn't talk about this, you didn't talk about the paint. Actually, this works like that." And it's like, they're just giving you their opinion on a product they bought to help you make an informed decision. You're just coming in hoping that they're going to say that you made the best purchase possible and that you spent your money wisely. You missed the plot, son. That's the problem with so many modern consumers is they aren't there. They want to buy a game. They want to they don't want to read what IGN has to write. They want to scroll all the way down the bottom to see it's got an 8, 9, or 10. If it's got a 7, they're going to go and they're going to roast that reviewer in the comments section. You see it with every Sonic game too.
Yeah.
Every Sonic game.
And it could go both ways. It's like, oh, this game is amazing, and you only gave it a 9 when it deserved a 10, or you gave this game that definitely doesn't deserve a 10,
right?
When it's
you see it with every Zelda game,
because
Zelda games. Why did they even bother reviewing them? Why did they even bother reviewing them? Because every time it's a 9 or a 10. And don't get me wrong, I love Zelda games. I love them. But I will buy a Zelda game because I know it, I trust it. Like Mario Wonder, I don't need a review for it. But when Mario Wonder comes out on Friday, I'm not going to go in and I'm not going to go scroll the reviews to be like, oh, I made a horrible choice. I'm going to play the game. I'm going to make my own decision because I'm not the target audience. I'm not somebody that I either have to choose between eating or playing Mario Wonder. I can do both. I don't need that review. I'm such a Mario fan that I'm going to get this game. I'm going to make the most out of it. But I just feel that there's always those people that don't even bother with the reviews. They just want to know, does this person align with me? And if so, I'm going to celebrate. If not, I'm going to get upset in the comment section.
Yeah, that something I was going to mention like an hour ago, and I forgot. Was that a lot of these people basically need you to confirm their like or dislike of a game. It's like, if you are, not someone who needs other people's affirmation. It's like, I can like a game if you don't like, and I can be perfectly content with that, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there are definitely games where
Fire Emblem's a good one. Like strategy RPGs aren't for everybody. And you could be like, hey, not my cup of tea, but if you like this style of game, great. Soul styles games. Like I'm so neutral on them. Like I found ones that I've really enjoyed. Like I like Demon Souls. It's punishing. I love I loved Jedi Fallen Order. That was
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. That was a game that I really enjoyed because it also got the as far as Star Wars characters are good, but it nailed it. It had enough. It wasn't too Disney-fied for me to be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was a good balance between challenge and being punishing. But I still understand when people are like, I don't like the respawning enemies. I don't like the difficulty. I don't like this. It's like, I can understand. I feel like the problem we have now is that you have people that are so like they're licking the boots of the corporations, but they also can't accept any criticism that certain people just and this is a problem too. That there's people. It's like you have to understand that not every game is going to suit you, and we've gotten to this space too where people expect games to be for them every single time. Like I'm never going to get a FIFA game. I don't care for soccer. My brother-in-law loves that game, plays it every night.
I like soccer, but I'm not going to play a sports game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we know that those sort of games, they're just not our cup of tea. But there's nothing faulty about the game. If a FIFA game gets a 9 or a 10, you still have to understand that while that game was reviewed very well, it may not be for you. You have to read between the lines, and it's just like,
so many of these people take like you like criticizing a game with, like your example earlier with legitimate criticism, almost
Yeah.
like it's a personal attack on them.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny. I had a friend years ago when I used to be a big Xbox guy, big Xbox guy. I had the OG Xbox. Xbox 360 was like that. I loved that system like nothing else. It was so innovative and cool. And like I talked about this on Melee Games' channel. Um, 2013 rolled around and I was like, what are they doing? It was just so much anti-consumerism. And I have a friend
Yeah.
who is, who's a hardcore Xbox guy. And I was venting my frustrations among friends. He literally said to me, I think that when you criticize Xbox, it's a personal attack on me. And I'm like, oh, Steve, what are you talking about?
It's like I am an Xbox guy still to
Yeah.
this day. I'm a big Xbox guy, but I can still criticize them, and they
Yeah.
don't do everything great. I can say, "Hey, you're doing this wrong," and
Yeah.
I can still like Xbox.
I mean, I was like, I wasn't going like full on Dale Gribble. I had my gripes about the Connect. I'm like, the backwards compatibility issue is terrible. Why is a console, and again, I still PS4. I was not happy that it didn't have PS3 backwards compatibility, and I understood why neither did because the architecture. But they ended up pulling a rabbit out of the hat with the Xbox One late in the console's lifespan. It was possible,
Yeah, that was
you know.
awesome.
Yeah. But, the fact of the matter is, it's just like, I think that there were very valid criticisms when it came to the Xbox One,
Oh, if
valid
yeah,
criticisms with the PS4, but PlayStation 4, they're like, hey, we're not going to assault you with DRM. We're not going to make your system, it's got to be connected to the internet to work. And
yeah. That E3 when
Don
Microsoft shot
Matrick, yeah.
themselves in the foot with the announcement of the Xbox One, it was hard to be an Xbox One fan at that time because
Yeah.
everyone's like crapping on you. But it's like I didn't get an Xbox One on launch, but I did have one. I did get one like a year later,
I,
and I'm secure enough in myself to be like, yeah, I
yeah,
know it's not going to sell anywhere near as much as PS4, but I still like Xbox. I don't need anyone
yeah.
else to, confirm that.
I got one when they removed the Connect requirement, which was
Yeah,
great because
same
not
here.
only did they remove the Connect requirement, it got a price cut, and
Yes,
I got it with Titanfall and a Connect for $400.
nice.
Not that I really wanted the Connect. Like, I didn't hate the Connect. I was just like, I don't want to be forced to buy the Connect. The Connect should
Yeah,
be its own peripheral. And there was a time where I did like the TV integration, and I will say this: I do miss the dual HDMI ports on the back of the system.
yes,
You
I
know,
love that.
yeah,
Because the Xbox One and the One X had it, but they removed it on the Series X, which
yeah,
was a bummer.
yeah. Because I like the ability to. It's funny. It does it when before I bought this house, I could have used it because my wife and I still had regular cable, like TV cable, and I actually liked plugging my cable box into the Xbox, and I would tell the TV to turn on the Xbox, or I'd tell the Connect to turn on the Xbox, turn on the TV, and I could say watch Adult Swim, and it would put on Adult Swim, or watch. We watch a lot of Food Network. Watch Food Network, and it would put on Food Network. Now I can kind of do that with my I can't even say the name of them. My Amazon boxes.
Yeah.
Um,
Alexa, play music.
right. Well, ours aren't even named that because that's my wife's name. So
Oh,
but it's funny because my in-laws don't change the name of it, so they'll be having a conversation with her, and it's just going off, and I'm like, why don't you just change the name to Echo or Computer? I said Echo. Shit. Sorry. Yeah.
it's funny you say that because in a stream a couple weeks ago, James was saying Alexa a bunch, and he almost got my Alexa to sign up for Prime Music.
Oh God.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do all those controls now through that
Yeah.
instead. What I liked it for, because I haven't had like a TV cable box since like 2010. What I liked it for is to plug my Xbox 360 into it, so I can
Oh yeah.
play my
Yeah.
Xbox 360 games on my Xbox One without having to switch the input on my TV.
Yeah. Yeah, some people would do that too for like their Switch. They'd have their Switch routed into it, and they could kind of do both. And I really did like the picture in picture that they had in the early days of the Xbox One because
Yeah, there were a
yeah,
lot of great features that they've
yeah,
since removed that were a bummer, and that picture-in-picture one was great, and I hated when they got rid of that.
yeah, because I think uh, when was the last time that the Orioles? I mean, the Orioles were in the playoffs this year, but
Talk
I
about
was
sports, I have no idea.
yeah, I like baseball. That's about it. But I could like have the game on while playing stuff or it was just kind of cool that you could do it. You could have a
Yes.
show on while you were playing a game. And yeah, it's just kind of now lost. I mean, now of course people be like, "Oh, just put your phone up and have your phone as your second picture." And I
Yeah, it's
kind
not
of,
the same.
I kind of do that because like a lot of times, like I'll be watching somebody's podcast and playing a game.
I almost
You
always
know,
have something playing on my iPad while I'm gaming, unless
yeah.
it's something super story heavy.
So, but yeah, that's. I mean, it can be done, but I mean, how cool would it be to like be playing a game and it's like it's like a lot of times when like I'll be watching like James and Kay, I'll be watching the James's streams. How cool would it be to have that in like one window and then also you're playing a game? You
Yes,
know,
that'd be perfect.
of course, then I'd be playing a game and James would be like, "No," um, you know.
So,
But yeah, a lot of cool features people forget. I could go on all day about this sort of stuff.
well, if you ever want to come back on and talk
No,
more games,
I definitely would like to come back on. I know my time's short, and I'm here on the East Coast, so I got to be up early too. I have to go to the Delaware office for work in the morning, which is you know not fun, but got to do it. So I have to be up in 6 hours to you know get cracking for that. But I definitely would love to come back and talk some of this stuff for a bit longer because
definitely.
I definitely go on about it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the whole point of open mic. So let me know when you want to come back on. We'll make it happen.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate you coming on finally
Yeah,
and get a chance to talk and
yeah.
had a great time.
I will be off around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, so maybe around then I'll have some time where I won't have to go into work and be up all night. But
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, just let me know.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
likewise.
I just love talking games with people. So,
Yeah,
oh, and right here at the last minute, my buddy
yeah, that was
Vanquish
it.
AZ is hopping in. He was on open mic last week. Yeah, catch the replay. We had a great discussion. And this is my buddy in real life, Faden. I'll be seeing him on Friday for a party. So
Oh,
I
okay.
wear a suit for it. So I
Oh,
will see you
A
on
Spidey
Friday.
suit.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, a legitimate suit. So,
yeah,
well, thank you, Extra Zero, for coming on,
yeah.
talking
It's
games with
a
me.
pleasure.
Looking forward to next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you want to plug before we head out here?
Yeah, so I'll be on my show on Thursday, Figure Action Podcast, for youtube.com/figure action. If you're into Transformers, third party, Marvel Legends, Black Series, anything that's kind of relevant or big, we talk industry news. We cover anything that's news or industry related in the toy world. If you're into that collecting, check us out 9 o'clock Eastern on that channel. I am a co-host over on the Legion of Memers, so I'm the producer and a co-host of the stream. We're going to have Adam Krigler on this
Oh, cool.
Saturday, so Adam's going to be our guest, and I'm looking forward to that because
I'd love to
we've
get him
already
on Party Chat sometime.
DM him. He's awesome, dude.
I know he's a big gamer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so we're gonna have Adam on, and that should be a good show. So 4 o'clock Eastern, over on the Legion of Memers channel on YouTube and Rumble, and yeah, that's about all I've got to plug right now. So,
all right.
and then
Well,
of course follow me on Twitter at extra008 if you like memes,
I
memeing the heck
believe
out of
I've
it.
got both your YouTube channel and Twitter in the description already.
Awesome,
Yes, I
yeah,
preloaded
good,
it. So the link to his channel and his Twitter is in the stream description.
awesome. Yeah, I'm on
So
my road to 500 on Twitter, so maybe I can get monetized and we can make that it's funny too. Everybody's like, oh, you actually pay for Twitter Blue. It's like, yes, I have to. Because the thing about being a producer for a show is there's a lot of people who you can't DM anymore unless you're verified. So thank you, Elon, for that. You know,
Yep. Yeah,
so
I ran into that when I was trying to message someone just recently and say, "Hey, would you want to be on Party Chat?" And it's like, "You need to be a subscriber." I'm like,
yeah,
"Really?"
it's so lame that you have to do that just to send a direct. I mean, I guess it cuts down on some of the spam, but
Yeah,
still,
I
it's
get it. But yeah,
yeah.
it's just annoying.
There's got to be a better way. There should be like a like verify who you are, but you don't pay for it, and that's your thing. Like, hey, we got your ID, we know who you are on file, but
Yeah, you are a real person.
yeah,
So, well, since we had Party Chat on, or not Party Chat, open mic on Tuesday this week, that leaves my Thursday night open. So if I don't end up doing anything IRL, I'll probably continue streaming Republic Commando because I've been streaming that
good
here and
choice.
there because I've never played through it in its entirety.
Mm.
So I'm playing through it essentially my first time because everyone said how I played a lot of Star Wars games because I'm a huge Star Wars guy. But I had never played Republic Commando and I just never got around to it. So so I've been doing that. So I'll probably be playing that on Thursday night instead. And then I got next episode of Party Chat on Saturday at 11:30 a.m. We're gonna be talking some spooky related topics because it's the last Party Chat for Halloween. So oh, you know what? I think I've got an open mic scheduled for next week as well. I think next week is also, where's my schedule? Is also on Tuesday. Let's see, what day is that? Yes, next week on the 24th, because his schedule also doesn't allow a Thursday night. So Party Chat, or I did again. Open mic next week will also be on Tuesday, and I will be having the Fractured Filter on.
Nice, good dude.
So yeah, I've been trying to get kind of like you. I've been trying to connect with him for a
Right.
long time. Just hasn't worked out because his work
Tough
schedule.
being in demand. Yeah.
Yes. So, well, had a great time chatting with you
Yeah,
tonight, and I'm
likewise,
looking
man.
forward to chatting again sometime in the future.
Awesome. Yeah.
And everyone
Definitely.
who joined in the chat, thanks for joining us. And we will catch you next time. And in the meantime, game on.